The only radio other radio stations listen to.
When I become rich and famous, all these faces will know who I am, 'cause I'll be a superstar, flashing lights and cover pages. All these faces will know who I am, 'cause I'll be a superstar. Did you see me in the magazines? Tell me, what did you think of me? I'm a celebrity. Don't you know, yeah, I break all the rules, but I figure that's what stars are supposed to do. Just 'cause we're super cool. Don't you know, whatever time of day, be sure to find me in my designer shades. That's how I operate. Don't you know, if I had to do this all again, I wouldn't change anything. The ladies love me and the fans adore me. My super story is one with lots of money. When I become rich and famous, oh, these faces will know who I am, 'cause I'll be a superstar, flashing lights and cover pages. Oh, these faces will know who I am, 'cause I'll be a superstar. No more lining up outside the club, straight to the door, of course they remember me. I live in VIP. Don't you know?
Good morning to you, dear listener out there. I want to say you are welcome to another working week. Today, January 19, 2026. It is Business Diet time on Wells Radio 89.3 FM, Alafin Avenue, here in the city of Ibadan. We are seated along Alafin Avenue, Oluyole Estate in Ibadan. Wells Radio is your number one family radio station here in the city, and you're listening to us within Ibadan and outside Ibadan, across towns and villages in Oyo State and even beyond. So we want to say we are proud of you, just as you do for us. Well, this week on Business Diet, we are going to take the news, after which we shall go into analysis. I urge you sincerely to be part of this show and to be active, not just to listen, but to actively participate. How do you do that? By calling the studio lines, which I'm going to dictate after reading the business and the economic news. I urge you to stay tuned and listen to the news and contribute your own views, give your advice, and also express your sentiment, and also learn from the part where we are going to talk about experiences of people in the past years regarding their businesses and what you can do this year to make life better. Procrastination is an enemy of time. It is an enemy to you as an individual. We are on the 19th day of January, the first month of 2026. It is not the best for you to keep postponing what you plan to do in the year. Some people started early. I told you the other time, okay, maybe when we get to that section, we shall take that. Let's first go to the business and economic news. First, the airlines. FG allocates below 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation. 62.5% surge in power sector debt threatens FG's 1.2 trillion bond plan. Importers surpasses domestic refineries supply 62% of petrol demand in 2025. Now the news in details. FG allocates below 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation. The federal government has earmarked about 206.5 billion naira for poverty alleviation related programs in 2026 budget, representing far less than 1% of the proposed 58.47 trillion naira expenditure submitted to the National Assembly. An analysis of project-level data in the 2026 appropriation bill shows that all items directly linked to poverty alleviation across ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, including provisions under the service-wide vote, amount to 206.5 billion naira. This allocation translates to approximately 0.35% of the total proposed budget when measured against the capital expenditure estimate of 23.21 trillion naira. Spending on poverty-related interventions accounts for about 0.89%. The largest share of the allocation is domiciled under the service-wide vote, driven mainly by two recurrent provisions tied to the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy (MPRGS). These include 100 billion naira for national poverty reduction with growth strategy under the federal government commitment, which incorporates the upscaling of the National Social Investment Program (NSIP), and an additional 100 billion naira as recurrent allocation for the MPRGS. The modest allocation comes amid projections that Nigeria's poverty rate could rise to 62% by 2026, with an estimated 141 million Nigerians expected to be living below the poverty line. 62.5% surge in power sector debt threatens FG's 1.2 trillion naira bond plan. The federal government's effort to settle outstanding obligations to electricity generation companies (GenCos) are facing mounting pressure. Debt in the power sector increased by 62.5% to 6.5 trillion naira at the end of 2025, up from about 4 trillion naira at the start of the year. The government in mid-December 2025 launched a funding program with the issuance of a 590 billion naira Series 1 power sector bond as part of a broader plan to raise 1.2 trillion naira by the end of the fourth quarter of 2026 to improve liquidity in the power sector. Nigeria's electricity sector has for decades been weighed down by huge legacy debt, which have constrained investment in critical infrastructure needed to expand and stabilize power supply across the country. However, concerns have emerged following the first tranche of the bond issuance, comprising 300 billion tranche A and 290 billion tranche B, particularly around the transparency and the impact of the intervention on overall sector liquidity. With the federal government struggling to meet its financial obligations, industry data obtained exclusively by finance reports show that GenCos were paid only about 35% of the invoice for electricity supplied to the national grid, further deepening the liquidity crisis in the Nigerian electricity supply industry (NESI). The data, covering 6 payment cycles between May and October 2025, indicates that 25 generation companies issued invoices amounting to 1.531 trillion naira for power supply to the grid, but received just 547.369 billion naira, or 35.744%. The outstanding balance of 984.3 billion naira is expected to be settled by the government as electricity subsidies. Importers surpasses domestic refineries, supply 62% of petrol demand in 2025. Petrol importation remained the dominant source of fuel supply in Nigeria in 2025, accounting for 62.47% of the country's total premium motor spirit PMS consumption, according to data. This trend persisted despite the commencement of operations and gradual ramp-up in production and distribution by domestic refineries, including the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, government-owned refineries, and several modular refineries in the country. The findings are contained in the latest midstream and downstream sector fact sheet released by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMDPRA). An analysis of the fact sheet shows that Nigeria's total petrol consumption in 2025 stood at approximately 18.97 billion liters. Of this volume, oil marketing companies supplied about 11.85 billion liters through import, underscoring the market's continued heavy reliance on foreign fuel. By implication, nearly two-thirds of the petrol consumed in the country during the year was imported, while domestic refineries supplied about 7.54 trillion liters, representing 37.53% of the total national consumption, the regulator said. Before I end the business and economic news, here again are the headlines. FG allocates 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation. 62.5% surge in power sector debt threatens FG's 1.2 trillion bond plan. Importers surpasses domestic refineries, supply 62% of petrol demand in 2025. That ends the business and economic news. Now, dear listener out there, I urge you to come on to participate in the discourse. Now, do I call it discourse? I want to call it talk or analysis, because I'm the only person in the studio, but you are out there listening and following this show, this business show. So I would like you to be part of the conversation. Let us talk about the economic situation of the country. The numbers to call are 0916 893 1000. Another number 0915 3334 893. And the last number 0911 3333 893. So I would like you to join me as I try to analyze each of the business reports. The first one being FG allocates below 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation. Well, for me as a person, what struck me when I got to this story is the fact that poverty is endemic in our country, Nigeria, and it is not really something that is cherry. It is not cherry at all. In fact, I can remember what the former national chairman, national president of national chairman of the ruling party, Chief Bisi Akande, said when on the occasion of his 87th birthday in Ilaorangun, he said that government should provide rich education in order to address insecurity. And I want to look at it from the other side to say that if the problem of education is addressed, then we are going to overcome, one, insecurity, two, the issue of poverty. And of course, when you address poverty has to do with one-on-one situation of people, okay? And when you aggregate it, you put it together, it comes to bad economy. So for the economy, the challenge economy of this country to improve, we need to really set to task, to set to business those that are in charge of the country and the private sector, the government and the private sector need to work hand in hand. They need to work, make a concerted effort to address the situation. So now with this story, FG allocates below 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation. What do you think as a member of the public? How do you feel about this? Are you happy that government of Nigeria has allocated below 1% of 2026 budget to poverty alleviation? Well, for me, that is really, really too low. Okay? That story reads, the first paragraph reads, the federal government has earmarked about 206.5 billion naira, representing far less than 1% of the proposed budget for poverty budget, Nigerian budget. The proposed budget is 58.47 trillion naira. Which was submitted to the National Assembly, okay, towards the year 2026 government activities, government spending by ministries, departments, and agencies. So one would expect that the issue of poverty should be addressed, should be given a very significant attention, especially looking at the situation where those that are below the poverty line is the number is staggering. The number is staggering, and then when you consider the fact that one of the major factors that are being traced to crime and criminalities in any human society is poverty. When the economy is not too favorable to the people will look for alternative means which can include the negative ways, okay? When you talk about kidnapping, when you talk about money ritualism, when you talk about bribery and corruption, when you talk about all these, when you talk about robbery in the society, you talk about you are now calling to question how is the situation in the country economically. Yoruba has an adage that says that bí ìlú ò bá dùn, bí ìgbẹ́ ni ìlú máa ń rí. When the economy is not flourishing, the people will be in a money mood, so to put it. Let me put it that way. Well, what we are trying to look at is the situation where below 1% of an annual budget of a country as big as Nigeria with high poverty level, where you have just 1% allocated, 1% below 1% of the budget allocated to poverty reduction. Are we really fighting poverty in Nigeria? You can talk to us. You can call the studio lines 0916 893 1000 or 0915 3334893. And the last number being 0911 3333893. While I'm awaiting your call, yes, let's go to the next story, which reads 62.5% surge in power sector debt threatens FG's 1.2 trillion bond plan. Well, I'm going to dwell very briefly on this because I also need to talk about other things. But one thing that is really, really not cherry is the fact that as the mainstay of one of the mainstays of our economy, one of the things that can guarantee our economic flourishing, our economic prosperity, allow me to say that, is the situation of the situation in the power sector. If we have stable power supply, I tell you, anyhow, this economy is going to improve. Okay, look at hotels, look at production companies, manufacturing companies. They rely seriously on electricity, regular electricity supplies. But a situation where you don't have that, what do you expect in our country in a situation where you don't have regular electricity supply? You are going to have it bad. So, well, we want to those in the sector, the stakeholders in the sector, to rise to the challenge. Why do we have a situation where the government has to subsidize so much at a time when one of the slogans of the government of the day is no subsidy? We have a situation where we have an outstanding balance of 984.3 billion naira as outstanding to be paid by the federal government as electricity subsidy. This is not cherry at all. Then importers surpass domestic refineries, supply 62% of petrol demand in 2025. Despite the fact that we have the NNPC in Nigeria, we have the Dangote refinery, we have other modular refineries in the country, to still have a situation where not less than 62% of petrol demands in 2025, domestic demands in Nigeria, rises to about 62%, where only 38% is produced locally. That is not cherry at all. That is not a good news. Well, we want to say the marketers, rather than concentrate on, the petrol importers, rather than concentrate on importation, why don't you also come together and set up a refinery? Well, it is on this note that I'm going to draw the curtain on Business Diet this week, but I won't want to go until I've said a big thank you to the management of Wells Radio 89.3 FM for allowing this program to sail through 2026. Well, I want to say a big thank you to my producer, Aboluwade Ali, as well as engineer Henry in the house. It's been up and doing. Thank you. Until next week when we meet on another segment of Business Diet, I remain your dear friend on the radio, Akinwale Aboluwade. Cheers. Stay blessed. Stay productive. Cheers.
What did you think of me? I'm a celebrity. Don't you know, yeah, I break all the rules, but I figure that's what stars are supposed to do. Just cause a super